However, this critical waterway is now under grave threat due to the continuous attacks by the Houthis. Shipping giants like MSC, Maersk, and Hapag-Lloyd have been compelled to divert their vessels away from the Suez Canal, forcing them to take alternative, lengthier routes. The repercussions of this diversion are vast and affect various industries. Hello and welcome to Vision Vibes. Today we are taking a look at the Red Sea crisis and its impact on the global economic. Take the automotive industry, for instance. Car manufacturers source parts from different parts of the globe. With the diversion of shipping routes, the transportation of these parts could face delays, leading to a slowdown in production. Furthermore, the additional freight costs could drive up the prices, affecting consumer demand and potentially causing a significant downturn in the industry. The agricultural sector could also feel the pinch. Countries import a vast amount of their food supply, and any disruption in the shipping route could lead to a delay in the arrival of these imports. Again, the increased shipping costs could translate into higher prices for food items in supermarkets, directly impacting the consumer's pocket. The consumer goods industry isn't exempt from this either. Everything from your morning cup of coffee to the smartphone in your pocket navigates this slender waterway. The increased freight costs could mean higher prices for these everyday items, making them more expensive for the average consumer. In an already strained global economy, this shift has sparked a chain reaction on global container rates, with freight costs surging dramatically. It's akin to an abrupt barricade on a jam-packed highway, forcing traffic to divert to lengthier, slower routes, sparking a cascade of delays costs. This escalation is not a minor event, as it could very well rekindle global inflation fears. Increased shipping costs mean higher prices for goods, a cost that is often passed on to the consumer. This could lead to a rise in the cost of everyday items, from your morning cup of the smartphone in your pocket. With consumer goods becoming more expensive, the specter of inflation becomes increasingly real, potentially slowing down consumer spending and stifling economic growth. Can you imagine paying more for your daily necessities, not due to increased production costs or demand, but because of a conflict happening across the globe? The crisis has already begun to cast its shadow on global shipping and trade, but what could be the depth of this impact? How far-reaching could the potential long-term effects of this crisis stretch? Disrupted supply chains to potential economic slowdowns, the implications of this conflict could be far greater than we can even begin to imagine. When the world's busiest shipping routes are disrupted, the effects ripple out far and wide. Imagine the logistics of global commerce like a massive interconnected puzzle. Every piece, every shipping route, every port plays a crucial role in the grand scheme of things. Now imagine if one of the most vital pieces of that puzzle, the Suez Canal, suddenly becomes a high-risk area. Major players in the shipping industry, the likes of MSC, Maersk, and Hapag-Lloyd, have found themselves in a precarious situation. In response to the escalating Red Sea crisis, they've been compelled to reroute their vessels away from the Suez Canal. This isn't a simple detour. It's a major deviation that leads to significantly longer journey times. But time, as they say, is money. In the world of shipping and trade, this adage rings especially true. Longer journey times mean higher operational costs. More fuel is consumed, more resources are expended, and schedules are thrown into disarray. These added expenses don't just evaporate. They are passed down the line, leading to a surge in shipping costs. The repercussions don't stop there. The rerouting of these vessels is causing disruptions in global container rates. Think of it as a domino effect. A single change in route triggers a chain reaction that reverberates throughout the entire industry. The balance of supply and demand is upset, causing freight costs to rise significantly. In essence, the Red Sea crisis is creating waves that are felt across the globe. It's not just a matter of a few ships taking a detour, it's a shift that's reshaping the very landscape of global trade. As we navigate these choppy waters, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The crisis is not just about a regional conflict, it's a global concern that's reshaping the world's trade routes. Shipping companies are at the forefront of this crisis. As the Red Sea crisis continues to unfold, shipping companies are grappling with immediate and far-reaching impacts. The disruption in one of the world's busiest shipping routes has forced these companies to rethink their strategies on the fly. Imagine steering a colossal ship, or in this case an entire fleet, into uncharted waters. The rerouting away from the Suez Canal isn't just a detour, it's a significant deviation that's adding weeks to journey times. This results in increased operational costs, fuel consumption soars, more resources are expended, and the meticulously planned schedules are thrown into chaos. The struggle to maintain these schedules is akin to a high-stakes game of Tetris, with shipping containers instead of blocks. The long-term implications are equally daunting. Companies are being forced to reevaluate their risk management strategies and contingency plans. Some are considering the added investment in alternative routes to mitigate future crises. Others are exploring technological solutions like AI-powered logistics and autonomous ships to optimize their operations amidst uncertainty. But these potential solutions come with their own set of challenges and costs. Shipping companies are navigating uncharted waters, reshaping their strategies to survive. As they steer through this crisis, the ripple effects are felt across the globe, from the ports of Shanghai to the docks of Rotterdam. The impact on these companies is a testament to the interconnectedness of our global economy and the fragility of our economic stability. When costs rise, so does the fear of inflation. This is a universal truth in economics, and right now, it's at the forefront of discussions as we navigate the fallout from the Red Sea crisis. Shipping costs are soaring, and there's a palpable sense of unease about potential price pressures. Shipping is a cornerstone of global trade, and when its costs increase, the ripple effects are felt far and wide. Think about it. From the clothes you wear to the food on your table, virtually everything is transported across oceans. When shipping costs rise, it means the cost of getting products from the factory to the store increases, which in turn can lead to higher prices for consumers. And this isn't just about your next shopping trip. The industries that rely on these shipping routes are vast and varied. Sure, the crude oil industry is an obvious one, but let's not forget about the automotive, manufacturing, and retail sectors, to name just a few. These industries all face potential price pressures due to the increased shipping costs. Analysts are sounding the alarm, fearing that these events could rekindle inflation. Now, inflation in moderation is normal, even healthy for an economy. But when it spirals out of control, it can erode purchasing power and destabilize economies. The fear isn't just about the here and now, it's about what this could mean for the future. If this situation persists, could we be facing a second wave of inflation? And if so, what would this mean for our global economy? These are the questions keeping economists up at night. The situation is threatening to reignite inflation, a concern that's sending shivers down the spine of economists worldwide. As we continue to monitor the situation, it's clear that the implications of the Red Sea crisis go far beyond the immediate disruption. The fear of inflation is a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of our global economy and the fragility of economic stability. As shipping costs rise, so do the costs of goods. It's a simple equation, but one that carries a significant weight. To understand this, we need to delve into the direct correlation between shipping costs and the price of goods. When shipping costs increase, it invariably leads to an increase in the cost of goods. This is because businesses often pass on these additional costs to consumers in the form of higher prices. Let's look at some examples. The automotive industry, for instance, relies heavily on shipping for the transport of parts and finished vehicles. As shipping costs rise, so too does the cost of producing and selling cars. Similarly, the agriculture industry, which relies on shipping for the transport of produce and livestock, is also heavily affected. But it's not just these industries. Think about your everyday items, your clothes, your electronics, your food. They all need to be transported from where they're produced to where they're sold, and that means they're all subject to the rising costs of shipping. And who bears the brunt of these increased costs? It's us, the consumers. When businesses face higher costs, they often have no choice but to pass them on to consumers. This means that the next time you go shopping, you might find that your favorite items are a little more expensive. The rising costs are not just a concern for businesses, but for consumers as well. This is the reality of our interconnected global economy. When one piece of the puzzle shifts, the entire picture can change. And right now, that shift is happening in the form of rising shipping costs. As we navigate through this, it's important to remember that this isn't just a theoretical economic discussion. It's a reality that affects us all, from the businesses that produce goods to the consumers who buy them. Let's shift gears and take a closer look at one of the industries hit hardest by the rising shipping costs, the automotive industry. The increased shipping costs are causing a shift in the automotive industry's landscape. Manufacturers heavily rely on shipping for the transport of parts and finished vehicles. As shipping costs go up, so does the cost of producing and selling cars. Imagine your favorite car model, now picture it with a higher price tag. This isn't just an imaginary scenario. This is the reality that car manufacturers are grappling with. And it's a challenge that's proving to be a tough nut to crack. Manufacturers are faced with a difficult choice: absorb these costs and risk shrinking their profit margins, or pass them on to consumers and potentially drive away customers. And it's not just the manufacturers that are feeling the heat. Dealerships too are feeling the pinch as they deal with the increased costs of transporting cars from manufacturers to their lots. What does this mean for you, the car buyer? Well, if manufacturers and dealerships choose to pass these costs on to consumers, you might find yourself shelling out more for that new car you've been eyeing. And if they choose to absorb these costs, it could potentially lead to job cuts in the industry as companies look for ways to save money. Either way, the road ahead seems bumpy for the automotive industry. As we steer our way through this crisis, it's crucial to remember that the ripple effects of rising shipping costs don't stop at the dock. They're felt across industries, and the automotive industry is one that's feeling the pinch. As we continue our journey through the ripple effects of this crisis, let's turn our attention to another hard-hit sector: the agriculture industry. The increased shipping costs are not only affecting the transportation of cars and other manufactured goods, but also the shipping of agricultural products. Imagine a world where the price of your favorite fruits, vegetables, and grains skyrocket. This is a potential scenario that the agriculture industry is facing as shipping costs continue to rise. Farmers and food producers are feeling the squeeze as the cost of transporting their products to markets, both domestic and international, soars. Think about the farmer who now has to pay more to get his apples to your local grocery store. This places a significant financial burden on farmers and food producers, many of whom operate on razor-thin profit margins, and the effects of these increased costs could trickle down to consumers, leading to higher food prices. What does this mean for you, the food consumer? Well, you might have to pay more for your groceries if these costs are passed on to consumers. And if farmers and food producers choose to absorb these costs, it could lead to a decrease in production as they look for ways to cut costs. This could potentially lead to food shortages in some areas. As we navigate our way through this crisis, it's essential to remember that its effects are far-reaching. The agriculture industry is yet another sector that's feeling the impact of rising shipping costs, sowing seeds of concern for farmers, food producers, and consumers alike. The crisis is highlighting the fragility of our current economic stability. To understand this, let's take a step back and consider how delicately balanced our global economy actually is. Our world is a tightly interwoven network of trade, with each country playing its part in the grand ballet of global commerce. When one player stumbles, as we're seeing with the Red Sea crisis, it can send ripples across the entire stage. The Red Sea crisis is a prime example of how a single geopolitical event can expose the vulnerabilities in the global economy. With major shipping companies rerouting their vessels away from the Suez Canal, journey times are lengthening and costs are increasing. This has a domino effect. Suddenly, goods are more expensive to transport, and these costs inevitably filter down to the consumer, pressurizing inflation rates that had just begun to cool down. Speaking of inflation, it's worth noting that the fear of a second wave of inflation is more than just economic jargon. Inflation impacts us all, from the price we pay for our morning coffee to the cost of our homes. If a second wave does indeed wash over us, it could have serious implications for the global economy. We're talking about potential job losses, decreased purchasing power, and even economic recessions. Now, we're not saying that the sky is falling. Economies are resilient, and we've weathered storms before. But it's crucial to recognize that our economic stability isn't a given. It's a delicate balance, one that's maintained by a complex web of factors. And as the Red Sea crisis has demonstrated, even a single disruption can pose significant threats to this balance. The crisis is a stark reminder that the global economy is more interconnected and more fragile than we often realize. The crisis in the Red Sea is not just a regional issue, it's a global concern. It's an intricate chess game with multiple players, each move echoing across the globe with a ripple effect that extends far beyond the Red Sea's sandy shores. Let's take a step back and reflect on what we've discussed so far. The crisis has already wreaked havoc on shipping and trade, with major companies like MSC, Maersk, and Hapag-Lloyd rerouting their vessels away from the Suez Canal. This has led to longer journey times, increased costs, and disruptions in global container rates. These disruptions have a domino effect, sparking a potential inflation fear. In an era where global inflation rates were just beginning to cool down, this crisis threatens to reignite them. It's not just the crude oil industry that's feeling the heat either. Industries far and wide are bracing for the potential impact. And what does all of this say about our economic stability? It's fragile, to say the least. The Red Sea crisis has laid bare just how delicate the balance is, exposing the vulnerabilities that we've perhaps been too complacent about. If the situation escalates further, the consequences could be far-reaching. We could see a second wave of inflation, further disruptions to global supply chains, and a potential economic downturn. It's a precarious situation that demands our attention and action. As we watch the events unfold, one thing is clear: the Red Sea crisis is a wake-up call for the global economy. Thank you for joining us till the end. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to subscribe for more related videos like this. Like the video, which will help to motivate us, and share the video with friends and family.